Boost ignition and liftoff, and all systems are go.
Welcome to the Lesbo and the Bean universe. Lesbo and the Bean. LATB, Lat B, where mixed martial arts and the UFC get silly. Big silly. Buckle up and move your tray tables to their upright position. And please, somebody shut that baby up. It's time for Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back. Episode 128. Here we go. We took a little hiatus because the MMA or UFC specifically has been a little bit lackluster. We're going to have another dry weekend. We got some PFL that can fill our boat. We got some Bellator, but really, we ain't got time for all that.
The way I'm thinking about it is, hear this in my hand? That's a vacation drink. We were on vacation. We are actually coming at you in the middle of our vacation. We should have told you ahead of time that we were taking a little break between these fights because we have tons of UFC to roll into. Once it starts again, it's just gets there, and there's big fights. Maybe this end of the year, if it all works out and all these fights actually come through, could be the biggest year of MMA ever. I don't want to put the cart before the horse because that never happens, but this is a vacation drink gift.
It's a recuperation right before we get into a long stretch of highly hyped fights. We've been having a ton of bouts being signed in these last few weeks. It's kind of been the only news that we've really been talking about. Of course, Khabib Conor, we've talked multiple times, but we have heavyweight bouts such as Blades against another heavyweight. Who's Derek Lewis got Volkov. That's a fun heavyweight bout. To the Big Russian versus the number one Black Beast himself. That is actually a really fun heavyweight bout. All sorts of other fights being put underway, but the fight that everyone's been talking about the most is Angela Lee. UFC fighter, has been fighting the number one Nazi in the sport. Her husband himself officially has a warrant out for his arrest for domestic abuse. Not surprised. Yeah. Here at Lat B, we talked about it a bit, right?
I feel if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, must be a duck. All the signs are there. I want to think, oh, is he recouped? He served his time, whatever. Right. I didn't know the UFC offered to get his tattoos covered and to pay for it.
Yep.
Like, whoa, Mo, get that taken care of, Mo.
But
get that taken care of. But if you want to keep it, we should tell the whole story to our audience in case they don't know about it.
You can go back because initially when this broke a few months ago, we actually covered it. But yeah, if you want to give them a really brief recap of what we were saying is, hey, you could get it covered and all that. But you specifically, Lesbo, was saying maybe he doesn't want to get them covered because that's like gang tattoos and people will come after you if you scrape off your whatever affiliation you had with him.
Yeah, or maybe he still feels that way. Like, he was in prison. If you are of lighter skin in America, pretty much the rules of the prison is there's, let's say one guard to every 50 prisoners. So you make the prisoners police each other because you can't do it if they don't. So the institution sets up racism, and that racism leads to the way that white people affiliate is by having to get the swastikas and the KKKs and all this weird skinhead tattoos. And some people, maybe he didn't want to cover. I was sticking up for him before. I feel like I was lenient on it. But now this is not surprising to me at all. And then if you read the whole story, and it makes no sense. It sounds like it's from a friend who's half in the bag, that it's like, oh, I woke up, like, she's obviously so used to the fact that they fight that she woke up once already at like 1 or 2 in the morning and they were screaming at each other and going ham. She goes back to sleep and then she wakes up to like a choking sound and he's like choking her. And then he runs out the door.
Interesting. I did not read any of that.
Oh, you didn't read the friend's quote?
No. I've seen the warrants. I know that he has domestic charges, but I didn't know that somebody was there.
She calls the mom. The friend calls the mom, and to Angela Lee's mom. So
okay.
I just picture him to live in a situation that they live close enough that, and she's like, I gather this happens enough that the friend
right.
calls the mom and like, they're at it again. You need to come over here. I'm scared this time.
Wow.
So the mom calls the cops. The cops are on their way over. She takes off out the door. He was choking her, and the friend's like, "What the F are you doing?" She takes off out the door in, running barefoot, and then he takes off after her, and I don't remember the rest of it. But the story is so broken up. To me, it sounds like these are white trash people. This sounds...
What?
These are evident
Nazi
white
tattoo
trash.
people all over their body, or white, a KGB herself.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, this isn't surprising.
Not surprised, motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't even, the KGB hasn't even, little to do with the Nazi
Well,
tattoos.
she's not even Russian at all.
No.
It's her husband who's like, I think you look Russian. It'd be a good look
and
for you.
they have a kid.
How weird
so
is that?
obviously people allow this. See, this is where that's why I have a little bit of anger with it. If you're a grown woman and you put yourself, I'm not trying to step on any battered woman's toes, but I hate the lack of responsibility sometimes that goes along. They're totally brainwashed. The poor woman. Whatever you want to do with your grown-up life. I'm not going to try to step on your toes too much. If you want help, holler at me, girl. I'm there. But if you bring a kid into this situation and you still stay in a dangerous situation like this when you have a fucking child, there's, I don't get down with that anymore. I can no longer, I don't get down with that.
Right.
So, whatever. This is just a case of white trash and, it seemed like something they would have just been wasted again. I think she's a culprit in this too. I think they're both
She's an
waste
accomplice.
boys together. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes two to tango.
Yeah, I don't think she's baking cookies and going to bed at 9 after praying by her bedside, and he's waking her up at 4 a.m. bitch. I think they're both getting down white trash together. So this story makes me a little irritated that there is a daughter involved.
That there's children.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, when you are a prize fighter, when you fight people for money, it's one of those things that a lot of people say that, hey, you need to be a samurai. But if you really think about it, people that fight for a living, not all of them, I like to think that some of them, have some, what is that, especially with CTE, impulse control that might be already compromised. And then with a boatload of CTE involved, we know that frontal lobe immediately affects the impulse.
Is her man a fighter too?
Yes. He actually either trains or has a gym or is a part of it. He is a pro, but never made it to the UFC level.
I don't get down, by the way, everyone, before you send me hate, I don't get down, obviously, with any men putting their hands on women. But I don't get down with women putting their hands on men either. I don't get down with people putting their hands on each other. I don't get down like
Unless
that.
it's consensual.
Yeah, unless it's all good.
Then we good. You just need a safe word. All you need is a safe word.
It's
Pineapple.
all good.
That's it. But other than that, some other trashy news
That
on
was
the
a
MMA scenes.
weird way to start it off.
A little bit of violence on an MMA podcast. Another violent accostation on the Bean's Eyes. We had Angela Magana keeping relevant in resin on a 7-fight losing streak, and it's not even her fighting that's keeping her relevant. It's those booty shots. I know you got an eyeful, Lesbo. How do you feel about Magana?
That booty tooch.
Yeah.
You got that booty tooch, girl. It's like one of those things where somebody is like, hey, what do you think of this? And you're like, and then it pans up and it's your grandma. That's how I felt with it. I was like, damn, somebody's bringing the booty. Oh.
Damn. Ganya.
But you got to give credit where credit is due. And if I can't come out and say, that's a nice booty, what kind of lesbian am I?
That is true.
What kind of lesbo am I? That was a nice booty.
It is unfortunate that she has to put out them booty shots, which is pretty much holding her career together, in my point of view.
She should change her nickname to Da Booty. Would you let her come back into the UFC if she changed her name to Da Booty?
No, only because I still want fighters that are good fighters in the UFC.
What did she fight at before in the UFC?
115?
Oh, never mind. I'm like, there's nowhere to go then. I thought she fought at 135. And I'm like, maybe she can go back and fight in the 125 division.
Nope. So, other good shots we had around town. We had Rusamal Harry or what Paul Harris, they like to call him online. Did you see his transformation as of late? This is also a former UFC fighter who last fight at 185 pounds, 70 pounds in the UFC, to now looking like a solid 220 of shredded muscle. I'm sure we retweeted a couple of those infamous photos. Wow.
I don't know.
How other fighters... Oh, Paul Harris is a guy who rips people's ankles off after the ref stops him, but he's easily gained
Oh, you talked about him.
40 pounds. He's a jerk, but now he can be a heavyweight easy. It's funny just how you see as soon as people get out of the UFC, how their bodies just transform into magnificent other creations of themselves. It's unreal how big that guy got, and he's like 40 years old. So prime muscle building.
Taking the juice.
Yeah, prime muscle building when you're 40 years old doesn't make any sense. And he says he's clean, obviously, like most other guys. He nothing.
If I have a question.
Yes.
A few things. I've always liked TJ Dillashaw, but I'm starting to really like TJ Dillashaw.
Mm-hmm.
He's becoming in my top 5 favorite fighters. Maybe in my top 3. I'm just really digging him. I think he's my pound for pound.
He has the credentials. The more and more you look at his career, it's been on top 5 guys he's been fighting since he pretty much got in.
And right now, also in my opinion, he did 300,000 pay-per-view buys with this. And yeah, Mighty Mouse, but I think that TJ's a draw on his own. I think it was TJ and Cody. And so if you're TJ and you get to pick your next fight, he pretty much gets to pick it.
Yep.
Who do you go with for your next fight? If you're TJ. And for different reasons. Who would you go with that you think would be the easiest fight of all the options he has right now? And that would be Henry Cejudo, Mighty Mouse, Moraes, Dominic Cruz.
Easiest fight is Dominic Cruz.
Yeah,
that's the easiest fight.
Your legacy fight.
Also Dominic Cruz. No. Now I was thinking DJ. TJ, yeah, because Dominic beat DJ, and that's for the legacy. But for legacy-wise...
Well, Andy beat TJ. A lot of people don't agree with the decision.
Oh, that is right. So, yeah, that is right. That is right. It was a split decision, and that's how we lost the belt. And then Cody.
So you think Dom?
It's Dom. And it's the easiest fight.
Who do you think the hardest fight is?
Moraes.
I do, too.
Yep.
But Moraes is chinny. And don't you think TJ has a really good shot at catching Moraes?
A lot of people have said that TJ's a bit chinny. He gets hurt in every one of his fights. He does come back from it, other than that John Dodson fight. But Moraes has that type of power and technique to be able to Aljamain Sterling and make you dab all over the goddamn ring.
I don't know. And I also think Moraes is way too big for his weight class.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. But I think Henry, TJ believes he walks right through Henry Cejudo. I don't know the purpose of, to me, if TJ fights Henry and gets the belt, he would still need to fight Dom and Mighty Mouse for his legacy.
For who's this fighter again? Sorry?
TJ.
Ooh, I don't think so. I think he's done so much his legacy is pretty
low. Cemented. But if he just wants to take it to where it's no question, if he wants to put his name as, I want to be the best fighter to ever do this, which he's up there. He is
up there.
So if he wants to cement this and make it a really hard thing where he's up there with the Anderson Silvas and the Mighty Mouse or even surpass he didn't even have to bring up Mighty Mouse into the equation of it. He's the one, but just to have that belt now, it's almost like to be included in it, you got to be a champ now.
And eventually we're going to get to, you got to be the champ. Mm-hmm. It's eventually going to happen where you go above and below your weight class in order to solidify your legacy, whatever that means. Hey, you keep bringing me quality fights, super fights. I don't care what weight class you're in. If you're 185 pounds and you want to go against the heavyweight because you believe you can beat him, let's do it. You're a prize fighter. You're willing to fight for money. That means you will fight whoever they pay you to fight. Mike Tyson said it best himself. You give me enough money, I'll fight a tiger. And that's the truth for a lot of these guys. You got to have that mentality. You can beat anybody in the world, and that's anyone, any weight class. Going off topic a little bit, this is something that
everything's going to be off topic.
Yeah. So we have a Contender Series fighter who is Juan Pena. He looked like Sloth from Ice Age. Humongous 290-pound fighter. Really said we liked him as an addition.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking back at a bunch of his Instagrams, and he's one of the few people I've seen who has actually covered his shame and ended up preventing the hogwatch by putting some stickers and or emojis around him. And that got me to thinking, is the hogwatch the new nip slip?
Is the hogwatch the new... Do you remember when there was that phase of like Britney and Paris Hilton and all them getting out of the car?
That's what I'm... Yes!
Being like,
yes.
Goosh! And they were like full beaver. Like it was
I
full
remember.
Sharon Stone. Boom.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, and it was like this phase where they were totally doing it on purpose.
On purpose.
Yeah, they were like showing it, showing the gash. So I do think there is something to the showing your shit off thing for all the guys. Because I've noticed a bunch of the athletes do it.
What, put stickers or just let it hang?
Just letting it hang or chilling out with it in different shots or like adjusting it in their underwear just so for, you know.
If you got it flaunted, some may say.
Yeah, I mean, it's your Instagram.
True.
Doing it for the gram!
Other grams that have been on fire. Gabby Garcia being oiled. Another heavyweight we're talking about in the other direction. Did you see that Brazilian on Brazilian crime? Seeing a hot body contest going on in their living room? What the heck is going on there? Cyborg greasing up Gabby Garcia.
Maybe they're about to go lay out in the sun.
That makes... Yeah, they were in bikinis and whatnot, but Cyborg, well, either way. It was just a fun shot. It was just interesting. That woman could fight Juan Pena and actually probably put in a good show. Or, is it Juan?
How much does Gabby Garcia weigh?
I think like 260.
Holy hell.
Yeah, she's huge.
Holy hell.
She's a fucking monster of a person. You wouldn't think it, but look, Cyborg. Cyborg's like easily 175, 180, and Gabby dwarfs her every time they're in a room together. And it's so interesting, their dynamic of, they're both monsters.
They are best friends.
They are best friends, but one beats up old Asian ladies while the another one actually fights in the UFC.
Well, one tries to fight in the UFC, but instead they're just like, we're going to hold you over here and ruin your career under contract with us so you can't fight with anyone else. And they're not fighting her anytime soon. They have a certain amount of times that they have to offer her fights in the year.
Yep.
Yeah, it sucks
Which
for Cyborg.
is another reason that here, Project Spearhead is something that at Lat B, we're always behind Leslie Smith for these reasons as get somebody a fight by a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter if it's a can for Cyborg. She's just like, I want to fight because I need to get paid.
I want to make some money so I can pay my camp and keep training. It's like a big cycle.
Exactly.
They're going to use the best part of her career where the reason she pretty much fights in the UFC, or a lot of these fighters do, is so they can get the notoriety and build their own name brand for life after fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
And another reason that we need some sort of other governing organization is because Tom Lawler was just serving out a suspension for USADA. Second year about to be over. He was about to be able to fight in the next 3 months. He just got cut earlier this week from the UFC. So he served out his suspension instead of just retiring from the UFC and going and fighting over
somewhere else.
What kind of dirtbag shit is that? Like, you're fucking somebody horribly bad in their professional career, which Tom Lawler's in his 36, 38 years old. His prime's already a bit over. He's holding on already to a career that's on the back end of a fighting career. So,
sucks.
We really need to do something about this. We need to, I don't know what we can do as fans, though, other than sign petitions. It's really up to the fighters.
As sad as it is that as long as it's like fraternities or, sorry, everyone out there in a fraternity thing, but it's the same thing. As long as you have somebody that's young and dumb and willing to put their name on the line, then there's going to be guys out there taking advantage of that. And as sad as it is, a lot of the fighters, they're just young, dumb guys at first. And so they take fights for not the right amount of money. They live harder than they need to be. And the UFC should be taking good care of these guys. And the Tuesday Night Contender Series, as much as I like it, it's worrisome about how many fighters they're just signing and signing and signing. And it makes me feel like it makes me nervous of the ESPN model that's coming forward. Like, what kind of churn and burn are you going to do with these young fighters that necessarily aren't ready for this kind of level of fame? This level of fame is going to inhibit their growth as a fighter. Whereas if they like just did it on the underground as unknown guys, I don't know. Unless they're like true martial artists and they have their head on straight and all this, which...
Again, with that CTE, hard for them to keep a head on straight sometimes.
Yeah.
Not to say that at all. There's a lot of people that have done just fine. As far as Twitter feeds, your boy, Tony Ferguson, has been posting heavily. It looks like that knee has gotten back under him. He's been doing some crazy-ass breakdancing, though, that I'm like, damn, man, just slow down. Just take a breath. Let's let that pig carcass of or what did he get? His grafted tendon, patella tendon in his leg. Let it fucking just grow in, man. He's in there doing backflips, breakdancing, hitting wood stumps. Come on. Have you seen any of that? I love that he has that mindset, but at the same time, every video I'm like, oh, please don't tear your knee.
Like we're all only human.
Yeah, exactly. Like your mind, yes, you're tougher than your body. You've proven that. Make it to the next fight, dude.
Well, the thing, I know it's part of his shtick. It's kind of how he's trying to build fans and do his whatever. But it also cannot do you any good to, like, insurance later on when you're trying to get your knee covered and they're pulling up your gram.
Yeah, exactly.
Being like, homeboy, here's a picture of you kicking a metal pipe. Here's a picture of you kicking a log. Here's a picture of you kicking a huge tire. Whatever he's got going on. Tony Ferguson's in my top 5.
Oh, I totally
I feel like
agree.
I could put together my top 5.
So let's hear it then.
I like Tony Ferguson
Okay.
and TJ Dillashaw
Boom.
and Max Holloway.
3.
Valentina Shevchenko.
Of course. The 4th one. 5th and final one. Woo!
And I don't know who's my favorite or at what time and blah, blah, blah. They're all just kind of up there together in the top echelon. If I'm going to have a 5th fighter, I don't know. I have to think about that one for a minute.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it would probably be somebody lesser known that's just not coming to my head right now. Like, not a star. I feel like those people now are all stars, and pretty soon most of them are going to be champions, with the exception... No, they're all going to be holding belts. Even though Tony Ferguson's belt was taken, like, they're all going to be...
I could see it. Those are all high caliber names. Those are all at the top end of our sport.
What about
Hall
yours
of Famers.
right now?
Right now, gotta go with TJ, obviously. DJ as well.
Yeah, you love DJ.
Then we gotta go with Johnny Bones Jones. I don't care what you say. That's one of the top ever. Then I'd go with Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, I don't... Johnny Bones Jones is just not one of my favorites. I love him. I think he's one of the greatest fighters ever.
Yeah.
He's just not one of my favorites. But yeah.
And then the 5th and final one, I'm going to have to go with Tony Ferguson. I think up there. I love that.
I think my 5th and
love the
final?
Hayden Museum. Yeah.
Mike Perry.
Ooh,
that
that's
weird?
out
I
of
know.
nowhere.
Yeah.
That one's out of nowhere.
He cracks me up.
Yeah,
I like
he's
what
funny.
he's doing. I think his character is
You like his spa session with Darren Till?
Oh, it could be between him and Darren Till. It actually could be between him and Darren Till.
You need a top 10 list,
I have
not
like
top
this
5.
little spot that's like just saved for an asshole. Like, I need an asshole in that spot.
Why can't there be an asshole list?
Spa or spa?
So you saw that interview, and those guys actually got in it and did some work. There has been no footage, but Perry's actually come out and talked and said, hey, they both hit each other, but Perry had MMA gloves where Till had boxing gloves without a mouthpiece. And Perry was like, why don't you put in some like paper towels in your mouth or something? And Till's like, nah, dude, I'm good. And they went at it, and they both hit each other a little bit hard. Perry won't say whether he won or lost, but they did work. And I love it because they're going to fight each other eventually. And the number 1 contender against the top 10 guy, I mean, it's only a matter of time for these young men. and they can put that aside and just give each other looks, makes them both better. I love it. I love that they have this new mentality.
And it just really, they've got to be looking at each other. That's the coolest part about it for me. Like, two guys from totally different parts of the world and kind of different guys, but they have this one thing in common.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if they had this moment like, this is my Darren Till impression. Holy shit, man. Can you believe that sounds Irish, but he talks weird and he has like a weird, he looks like he always has.
Is he
mouth
Scouse?
open.
The people say he's Scouse or something like that.
I'm sorry. Like, fuck my daughter. Fuck my. I'm just kidding. That's the whole other. But Mike Perry, I don't even want to do a Mike Perry impression. I don't know. I like both of them though. I like their UFC characters.
Yeah, I agree, and they do have good personalities in there.
I have a
They're
top
gonna
4
give us a
right
ton.
now. I have a top 4 right now. I can solidify those are my faves, but I feel shitty that they're my faves because they all are holding belts, even though Valentina's not and Tony's not.
Uh-huh.
To me, they're champion in my eyes.
So, any other late-breaking, last hard things in the UFC that we want to get to? Obviously, we got fights right, not this corner. Next weekend coming up, but we could go on for days and days.
Well, what else? What else do we have going on in the? Is there anything?
There's been a really big rivalry from a Philadelphia store owner with Frankie Edgar and Ali Abdelaziz. Have you seen all that
No.
BS? So, the store owner has had a sign of Frankie Edgar that he signed at his establishment. The manager for Frankie Edgar, Ali Abdelaziz, has been contacting the store owner and saying, "Hey, you piece of shit, scumbag, whatever, stop using Frankie as whatever." And this guy's like, "Hey, dude, you do not need to come at me like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a fan.
you don't need to come at me like that. And I help cops, and I'm a nice guy, and I got kids, so I'm not that." So the community has been really mixed about it because Ali has some of the top fighters, if not all of the top fighters he's been managing as of late, and the store owner posted all those tweets or all of those direct messages, and it's true, that dude totally, Ali came at him hard, super hard, and it's like, ooh, looks a little bit rough on you. How do you feel this affects the fighters when your management gets into more controversy than you do as a fighter, when your manager is the top line stories of the week?
I almost want to start looking at fighters that are coming up and who is managed by them. At what point are they bigger than the UFC?
The
At
management?
what point? Yeah, at what point are you managing enough of the fighters that you're like, I have a loophole in all their contracts that I know about. Like a loophole that I'll pull every single fighter. That's just too much power.
Right.
Like, it's almost too much. I know he's obviously the agent you want to be with if you're in this sport. Like, who knows how to look at contracts better than this guy?
Yep.
But shit, it just, if you know what a contract looks like for the UFC, and this is just what they look like with different dollar signs in it, I almost feel like he's running a scam. He knows what all of, you know, how easy is his job?
Exactly. But that's why he can also give people...
I don't like him though. He feels slimy to me.
He
When
does
I see
feel
him
slimy.
in places, his vibe to me is not great.
Habib had to hold him back from McGregor. Remember that? Habib was holding him because they have the same management. Frankie Edgar, Habib, every pretty much top fighter or fighter that's
I know, it
making
isn't that
money.
funny. Isn't that funny?
Well, as you were
And
saying...
does he work for WME to boot? Is
No.
that a cherry on top?
Nope, he does
No.
not. He does not. But as you're saying, though, it is true that he knows everyone's, and he can say, I represent these 10 guys. The guy that's the worst on the roster is getting paid maybe more than one of these other guys. No. You're going to pay them all up, and the UFC is just going to write it off before he tells anybody else.
Yeah. They are going to want to always keep him quiet.
Yep.
And he's always is pushing for them to get good deals because he gets 10% of all of them.
Exactly.
Or whatever his
whatever the
percentage.
percentage may
Yeah.
be. Exactly.
And I gotta think that a fighting deal isn't great. Like, a fighter's deal is every loophole they can take. They're like, oh, well, those t-shirts, those all come out of your pocket, so you get a share of them after we get paid back. Like, somehow it's like albums pressed or something. We do X amount of fight kits with your name on it, and that's all out of your cut. You know, like, what? No, I don't want no Reebok fight kits with my name on it.
Exactly.
Who knows? I'm just making that shit up, but who knows? I just gotta think there's ways that fighters are getting screwed left and right.
There is also ways that some of them are being able to monetize and actually have it benefit them. Sean O'Malley recently got a bout signed with Teco Quiñones. That's going to be a fun one, but somebody who's been able to make as much money, if not more, outside of the ring after his UFC performances has been Sugar Shane O'Malley. He has a weed strain, and he's now signed with one of the biggest esports sponsors, and he was just talking about how he's making $95 for his last fight to win, plus the bonus. He made around $95,000. He's getting that in sponsorships with his weed and video games now, without even fighting.
I've actually watched him on Twitch with Mighty Mouse and play. There is a formula. It isn't just being a great fighter. You have a certain look.
Yep.
And then there's a certain amount of charisma. And it can't be the exact same as somebody else's.
100% agree.
And so Sugar Shane is something totally different. And his style's totally different. But I think this new wave of guys has realized, because they've grown up watching the kind of what you grew up watching as a tough guy versus tough guy thing.
Right.
The new wave of guys, the 20-year-olds coming into it, have been watching it as partially an entertainment sport as they've grown up.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are coming out and they got to be that much more entertaining. They already know it's part wrestling character mixed with being an amazing fighter. They grew up on McGregor. They grew up on Diaz.
Yep.
They grew up on these guys. Anderson Silva inside the octagon doing this kind of stuff. They grew up on this from, you've been saying it forever.
Yep, exactly.
And Sugar Shane is that guy.
Yeah, 21 years old.
Other thing about Sugar Shane, out of all these young guys, he's one of the only ones that doesn't have a stage parent effing them up.
Good point.
All the other young guys we
He's been on his
see,
own.
they all have like a stage dad. Like the same way, like they might as well be dance moms, but they're like fight dads. Like we could almost do a documentary series on like Sage Northcutt's dad, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's dad. This is my boy, Chris Weidman's dad. Like it's like they're a group of stage dads that are kind of like how I imagine that John Benet Ramsey's, but moms. Like.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Sometimes dads live vicariously through their sons.
Yeah.
What a thought.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. They don't have any interest in their daughter's pageants, but they're at the gym every day with their boy, Wonder Boy. Their Wonder Boy. I don't know, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I feel like at some point, like, all right, go to work without your dad there. Fine.
I totally agree. And we've seen it. It's interesting, the fight world, how it tends to play out like that. And not only in MMA, boxing, other sports have had that kind of same influence.
Like Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to have to bring up his name this time around, but I always manage a way to get there. The Mayweathers.
Floyd.
So, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
Mac, Khabib, Diaz, Poirier.
Whoop. That's a fun one.
One thing that I think's been coming up a lot, and I'm like, Till looked enormous next to Tyron Woodley.
Oh, what are you talking about? The new poster that came out? That it looks unrealistic.
He's looking down on him,
towering over T Wood.
Well, did you see them standing doing face-offs?
Yeah.
And he's doing the Diaz stance.
Yep.
Till's doing the Diaz stance. His arm, his muscle, his bicep is as big as Tyron Woodley's head.
Till's got to make weight. Till his.
Does he have to though? Well, now we're seeing this new rule. This is what I was going to ask you about. What do you like about the new Usman playing backup? He's not only gonna train.
Good call.
He's gonna make weight.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna get his medicals done, and he's gonna get licensed in the state. So he's going to be ready to run if something happens between Till and Woodley. Same being said, Kevin Lee's doing it for Conor Khabib.
What I've seen with all that's happening, though, because this situation came about not long ago with Kevin Gastelum and Dana bashing him and saying he was supposed to be ready. I believe the UFC learned from that experience and realized, like, oh, we want these guys to make weight. We're going to have to pay them something.
They're compensated.
They're compensated. It's not a full purse. Usman said it himself. He's like, they're not going to pay me fight money, but they're going to give me money to make weight. And that's all we asked.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Just
it.
compensate the fighter. They're doing work.
They're working.
They got to train camp. They got to do all
gotta
the stuff.
cut
They
weight.
can't just show up on weight, though. They got to train. They don't want to show up and be like, oh, I'm rolling out of bed and just cutting weight. They want to be ready to get the title.
Totally.
So I think this is great news.
I agree, and I like it. I like the backup, and I like that we know who's the backup. So because it does help, like, okay, have this on the back burner because this is a completely different fight.
One of the funnest things for us to do is talk about it.
Of course.
So if we don't know about the backup until 2 hours beforehand, this just adds another flavor to the mix. Like, I think this guy can beat this guy, but what about if this guy steps in? There's a good chance Usman could walk away the champion.
I would love to see it.
We think it.
We've
done
waiting
it for years.
And if there's something that we know and or have learned since Rose Namajunas is we need a patent pending. Trust us, man. You gotta trust us.
Yeah, I think we can leave it there. I think that's all there is to say. So we aren't going to be here Sunday, but we will see you next Wednesday, and I think we have a fight to break down.
Oh, we'll have a big fight card to break down.
We'll give you a long show, and sorry we're taking a hiatus, and we love you guys, and thanks for listening.
Let's move the beat.
Thanks for listening to Lat B. For all things Lesbo and the Bean, head over to lesboandthebean.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.